Hey guys, it's Bex, just hopping on here before the episode starts to ask a massive favour. If you could follow us on socials, drop us a follow, give us a 5-star rating, it means the world. I won't keep you any longer. Let's get into the episode. Yo, what is up guys, it's your girl Bex and welcome back to the race rundown post-Japanese Grand Prix. What a painfully average Grand Prix weekend. Just throwing that out there, what a painfully average Grand Prix weekend. However, I'm going to try and spice it up for you guys. I've got my notes at the ready and let's make this a bit more interesting, shall we? As always, unpopular opinions. As always, brutal honesty. And as always, a little bit of fun thrown in as well. So, there was a little bit of rain in the morning. Nothing major, nothing enough to make this race somewhat interesting. Then we had Verstappen with an amazing start at the beginning of the race. Lando did not bottle the start, however, it was not enough for him to get ahead of Max. At least he didn't bottle it. In my opinion, would have been worse if he bottled it. Then, Alonso and Gasly on lap 1. I thought there was going to be a collision. That was actually insane to watch. I was a little bit stressed. However, we got there in the end. Then Max was 1 second ahead of Lando in lap 2 out of DRS. Not that DRS was on at that time. However, we all knew, and by we I mean the Lando fangirlies, that this was going to be a tough one because Max around this circuit is honestly next level. Love him or hate him, he's a 4-time world champion for a reason. Just saying. Okay, moving on. Norris in the pit lane. Now I know what you're thinking, Bex. That's a bit of a jump from lap 1 all the way to that pit incident. Yeah, not a lot happened in between. Not a lot happened in between. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I watched the actual race and then I went back and watched the highlights just in case I missed anything. Turns out, no, I didn't miss anything. There was nothing missed whatsoever. So, Lando came racing out of the pit lane and decided, you know what, my Formula 1 car is now a lawnmower, and just hit the grass and came over the radio basically saying, Max forced me off. This is incorrect information. Max did not force him off, and Max was already on his line and he'd have received a penalty if he'd have gone off his line, and McLaren should never ever have released him. So how they didn't get a penalty for an unsafe release is beyond me, genuinely, and that's coming from a McLaren girly. So, and this happens, I'm thinking, Lando, you freaking dumbass, you've just lost time doing that. So that's helpful. But then also thinking to myself, Red Bull have lost at least a second in that pole pit stop. So something went wrong on their part, which I was like, come on, McLaren need to capitalise, and they just didn't. And then they did the usual. I know it's going to be a little bit of a shit on McLaren podcast, but I feel like they deserve it this week. They should have capitalised on it and they didn't. And then they came over and was just pissing and moaning on the radio because they thought that they deserved a bit of special treatment. Well, you don't. And pissing and moaning over the radio, not going to help your case, like, at all. But hey ho, you tried. Then, you tried. There was no penalties for unsafe releases. Fine. You lost seconds though, didn't you? In that time, by the way, Kimi Antonelli leads the race. Now that is something I never thought I would hear myself say 3 races into this season. However, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I think he's doing an absolutely cracking job. And we'll talk a bit more about Kimi Antonelli later on. So, at this point, we've had the pit incident. Red Bull have had a slow stop. Lap 25, Albon is absolutely fuming because of pit stops once again with their pit strategy to get ahead of Behrman. I feel like Albon is absolutely killing it at the moment. I'm going to get into a bit more of this a bit later on after the rundown, my unpopular opinions, whatever. And we're going to get in a bit more into that because I feel like Williams are absolutely crushing it this season so far. And Albon, I think, is a crucial part to that. For now, anyway, until Sainz gets his head around the new car. This is something that Sainz has done from moving to McLaren, moving to Ferrari, and now moving to Williams. What a legacy, by the way. Like, you peaked at Ferrari and then boom, you're at Williams. No offense, Williams, but it's not exactly a Scuderia Ferrari, is it? But anyway, moving on. Albon starts screaming, shouting. I don't think his pit team deserved it. However, I could see where the frustration would come from. This is not the first time that we've seen anyone in a Williams be frustrated. So then, speaking of frustration, I think the situation between Lando and Oscar and the McLarens, again, this is not a shit on McLaren podcast. However, this week I feel like they deserve it. So at one point during said podcast notes taking, I was thinking to myself, well, Oscar is he was under a second to Lando, right? Now, I don't agree with team orders, I never have. Papaya rules are shit, in my opinion, and you will not change my mind. And as far as I'm concerned, people should be able to race, right? So Oscar's under a second to Lando. And I'm thinking to myself, there's going to be a passing opportunity here. There wasn't for some reason. Now, I don't know if we on the Sky F1 commentary missed a crucial radio message saying, Oscar, just leave it alone, don't pass. If that was the case, that's shit. Let them race. I am a McLaren fan through and through. Either driver doesn't bother me. I think at this current point in time, Lando needs to do more. I have said this in the last couple episodes, and you'll probably hear me say it quite a few times throughout the remainder of this season. If Lando really wants it, he needs to start pulling his finger out, because Oscar wants it more. At least it appears that way at the moment. And because of that, I think that if Oscar is faster and his pace is faster, he should have the opportunity. Whether they've, promised Lando that, if he stays, he'll get a championship. You can't really promise that, but he probably has it written in his contract somewhere that he'll be number one driver. I think that's bullshit. I think that's bullshit, personally. At the end of the day, if you're not performing, bit of a Red Bull strategy, really. If you're not performing, let the other driver that is pull ahead. Simple as. Red Bull this weekend, obviously, it was their last race with Honda. I wanted to see Tsunoda higher. However, that didn't happen. It was almost a bit of a baptism of fire for young Tsunoda this weekend, in the fact that it was his home race for a start. So you're already nervous enough as it is, and then you've got a brand new car to contend with. Yeah, that's kind of a bit naff, really. You've got a whole new car to learn, and it's your home race. So the pressure was on, and he didn't do too badly, but he didn't do great either. So then we finished the race with Max winning. Shock. Not shock. He's won the last 4 or 5 races in Japan. So I was like, yay, fun. Go back to bed. The national anthem made my eye twitch again, as always. But I'm not a Max fan. Please do not get this twisted. I am not a Max fan whatsoever. However, he had a good drive this week, and he deserved the win. He really did. He didn't moan too much over the radio. He wasn't playing into the games that McLaren were clearly trying to play into. And it was a class drive from him, standard. That's what you would expect from a 4-time world champion. But then, speaking of champions, I have said on the Race Rundown podcast in previous episodes that I genuinely believe that Sir Lewis Hamilton, moving to Scuderia Ferrari from Mercedes was career suicide, and I am being proved correct. We have a 7.5-time world champion being outpaced by not only his ex-teammate, but a rookie half his age. Now, Lewis is an outstanding driver. He's had 3 races in the Ferrari so far. I'm fully expecting him to improve. However, at this current moment in time, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You're being outraced by your old team and a rookie half your age. That is embarrassing. That is embarrassing, especially when so many people had such high hopes that you would just hop in the car and be perfect from the off. Because the way I look at it is, if you're a 7.5-time world champion, you should be able to hop into any car and after a few races drive that thing like you stole it. And he hasn't. Now, I'm not a member of Team LH. I've never claimed to be a member of Team LH. I would honestly rather stub my toe. However, it is contradictory when you hear him saying in reports and, you know, news articles and things that he's still competitive and that you can't compare him to all the other racers his age because he's still competitive and he's still driven and he's still this and he's still that. You don't look competitive when you're being outraced by someone half your age. I'm sorry. You just don't. This is a very unpopular opinion in my household, as my loving mother is in fact a Lewis Hamilton fan, which honestly, problematic. Me not being a Lewis fan. However, it's fun to just debate with her sometimes about Lewis and his current performance. I don't hate Lewis, don't get it twisted. I think he's a 7-time world champion for a reason. However, at the moment, that's not shining through as much. Sorry, Team LH, please don't kill me, but it's not shining through as much. And I know it's just a matter of time. However, again, when you're being outraced by somebody half your age and a rookie in your ex-team, it's a bit... It's just a funny situation to find yourself in, okay? So, when it comes to people that just aren't performing, I'm going to take a second to just... She scratches her head because she knows what's coming. I'm going to take a second to shit on Stroll for a second. Wow, shock. Bex, you don't like Stroll? Really? Really? Okay. There are so many talented drivers in Formula 2. There are so many talented drivers in Formula 1 that are either not on the grid anymore and or stuck as reserve drivers. Bottas being one. Before everybody starts, no, I'm not talking about Ricciardo. He's washed up. He deserves to be where he is. Sorry, not sorry. But there are so many reserve drivers and people that deserve a shot in F1 that Stroll should not be there. Sorry, he just shouldn't be in that Aston Martin seat. He cannot drive for shit. Yes, he's had points. Great, fantastic. Not anymore. And he should not be in that seat anymore. I do not give a toss if his dad owns a team. It is shit. And somebody should replace him. Just saying, somebody should replace him. I don't know who, but it's honestly outrageous that he's even in the team still. He should just be booted off out of it. Because it's just a joke. It's a joke. He bought his way in. He's got the driving talent of a fish. And he's going to have an Adrian Newey masterpiece under his foot next year. And that makes me so sad. So sad. Like, my heart just hurts, okay? Now, some of the hate that he gets, I don't think he deserves. But a lot of it, especially when it comes to him just being there because he's got nothing else to do, I agree with. He shouldn't be racing in Formula 1. I'm sorry. He just shouldn't. And that's that, really. That's my little shit on Stroll segment. Because Lord knows we need to humble him a little bit. And the last thing, before we get into the absolutely outrageous news article to come out of this weekend... Shout out to Doohan's Mechanics. Can we just take a second for Alpine here? Because he absolutely fucked that thing in practice. Like, absolutely kamikazed it into the wall. And somehow the Alpine Mechanics managed to get that thing fixed and working. Like, shout out to you. Honestly, if you're not already getting paid a shit ton, you deserve it after that. Because that car was fucked. Fucked. For lack of a better word, that car was absolutely fucked. And they managed to fix it. So shout out to them. They're never going to see this, but shout out to them. The Alpine Mechanics did a fantabulous job at fixing that. Like, fair play. You know, fair play. And the last thing I want to touch on here is the title of this video. The most expensive piss break you could ever take. So, Carlos, my man crush, Carlos Sainz, had an upset stomach, a medical issue that was literally cleared by the medical people on track, and he missed the start of the national anthem. Now, for those that don't know, if you miss the beginning of the national anthem, there's a fine. Carlos Sainz's toilet break. Can't believe I'm about to say this. Cost him 20,000 euros. 20,000 euros. Let me just Google that for all my UK viewers here. 20,000 euros in pounds. Just for some perspective here. Carlos Sainz's toilet break, which was cleared by medical staff, by the way, because he's not well, cost him 16,967 Great British pounds. Fucking outrageous. If it's cleared by medical staff, he shouldn't get fined for it. Because he couldn't help it. He's not very well. He couldn't help it. If they did it deliberately, then fine. Fine them. Fine them. Because they missed the beginning of the national anthem. Fine them. In most places, that's disrespectful. If it was on purpose. This was cleared by medical professionals. Sorry. He did not deserve to get that fine. In my opinion, I think it's stupid if there's an actual medical emergency, and in his case there was, because it was either go for a shit or shit your pants. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna shit my pants with that many cameras around. Fuck that. Whether there's a national anthem or not, I'm not about to shit my pants in front of everyone. It's not happening. Sorry, it's not happening. So yeah, that's that really. I don't really understand it, why they would have fined him in the first place, because it was cleared by medical professionals, as I said. So, with all that being said, we had a pretty eventful weekend, okay? There was no disqualifications this week. All of that was all pretty boring. Clearly, Ferrari learnt their lesson. The race itself was actually pretty boring. But we have been blessed by the Formula One gods with another race. Oh, you lucky, lucky people. We have Bahrain round 4 next weekend with the race at 4 p.m. Thank God, because I can't handle these early starts. Your girl's tired, okay? Your girl is tired. It's giving me a great opportunity to record as and when I've watched it. So that's good. But your girl's tired, okay? I'm tired. Getting up early is brutal. Shout out to all you fans that don't live in the UK, especially in Australia, and you have to get up so early. I feel so sorry for you. Honestly, dedication. Shout out to you. I can't do it, okay? I can't do it. So, the race is at 4 p.m. on the 13th, on the Sunday. So, until then, I've been your girl Bex. This has been the Race Rundown, and I'll see you all next week. Peace.